Today I'm going to show you how you can use Tripo Studio to generate awesome 3D models from images using their new Part-Segmentation tool, and how you can then further refine your 3D model by using smart low-poly generation, retopologizing and retexturing in Tripo Studio then later on. By the end of this video you will be able to generate stunning 3D AI models in seconds that you can then use for 3D printing, animation and rendering. Having said that, let's dive right into it. Hey everyone, my name is Philip from Pixel Artistry and welcome back to a new video on my channel. I'm really excited to announce that in today's video I'm going to look at Tripo Studio. Which makes this video very special is that also Tripo is kindly sponsoring today's video. Because Tripo just released their latest update, which is huge in my opinion, because it's the first time in the 3D AI space that we can actually separate our mesh while generating it the first time from a 2D image. Alright, so we are starting off at the official tripo3d.ai website. And as you can see already, we have here on the top the Tripo Studio button, which we will just discover in a second with the latest update then. Tripo Studio, by the way, is now fully available to all users. For example, don't need a subscription to access the core features, but if you want to purchase the Pro subscription, you will get additional benefits and can also benefit from, example, the segmentation model I will just show you in a second. So to get started, once you have signed up here on the top, what you can do is then navigate to Tripo Studio by simply clicking here this button, and then it will lead you to the studio.tripo3d.ai/home website. And as you can see here, we have a completely new interface than before. In case you have used Tripo AI before, it will look a little bit different, but I think gives us a much better overview than before. By the way, if you're interested in purchasing a Pro subscription with Tripo AI, I will put a discount code right down below this video in the comment section, also in the video description, where you can then get a discount for testing out the Pro features. So once we are here on the Studio Tripo 3D website, what we can do is then simply clicking here on the 3D model generator to start our 3D model generation. And then you are here on the main 3D generator site that you can then use. What you can see over here is that I have created already some 3D models for testing. As you can see here on the top, we have generation, overview, segmentation, which I will show you in a second, then retopology, texture, rigging and stylization. It's really cool that we have a whole 3D pipeline where we go from the generation phase to, in the end, to the rigging part or stylization phase. And as you can see already, I uploaded already an image here from our robot, but for you it will look something like this. So we can either use here the one-click feature or the build and refine. One click is simply that it will already provide you with a fully textured model that you can use. And the build and refine is a bit more precise. I would say it will start just only with the model without the texture, but you can then go really into detail and retopologize like every part, for example, and really go into detail. So first we will go here to the, you can either use the text to 3D, image to 3D or the multi-views, but I will go here with the image to 3D. Then I can here upload my image. I will go here to my files and then choose the robot I would like to have. We can then say, for example, if it should be private. This is just if it should be on the general community page or not. Then we can choose your smart low poly, which I will show you later on, which is pretty cool if you are working in games, for example, and you would like to have a smart low poly asset in the background. I will first go with the triangle version here, but you can go for cleaner topology with the quad method. And here you can also set a poly count on the faces, what you would like to have. I will also set this to automatic for this one. We could also choose here our style, so in what style you would like to have it, which is also pretty cool to test around. Make sure that you have here Tripo version 2.5 selected, which is the latest and greatest model. And once you have done that, we can then simply hit here generate. As you can see here, it's saying then around 30 seconds to generate your 3D model. And once our generation is done, we can see it over here that we have here a little icon kind of, and we can click on it and then it will lead us directly to the character. And as you can see, Tripo is doing a really good job here, texture wise, but also model wise. So it's reading the shape quite well. We You can also view here, for example, the wireframe. As you can see, it's triangulated at the moment, what we chose. We also have solid mode here to see the different shapes. We could also instantly download it then if we want by selecting our mesh over here and then simply going to the download button if we want to have that already. By the way, in case you enjoyed this video so far, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video so I can keep doing what I'm doing. And as always, check out my free newsletter Future Frames, where I will share with you on a weekly basis the latest 3D AR tools and news that are going on and workflows that you can use to further refine your 3D AR models. So definitely check that out down below. I will also put it down below for you in the video description. Having said that, let's directly continue with the video. Of course, we also have now the build and refine features. We can go here, build and refine, and then choose here that we could already choose that we want to have it in parts, but we will do this for now in the next step. But you could also have a quick shortcut here to do this over here. But otherwise, we will also choose the triangle mode and then click also on generate. And then once it's generated, as you can see, we have now this clay model kind of as a preview. And we also see it here in the asset section that it's without our texture. And once we have done that, what we can do then is that we go first to the overview. And then as you can see, it's saying here what we have already, our model name and the prompt. It's also creating a kind of automatic prompt because it's reading the shape and then giving us this automatic prompt, which is cool. And then we can go to our the most interesting part, I guess, for the new update, which is the auto segmentation part. Because of course we have a combined model right now, but we would like to have single parts for our robot that we can refine single parts, for example in Blender later on, or have like different parts for remeshing and stuff like that. Simply hit here, start segmenting, and then it will automatically read the shapes of the different models. Okay, and this is the result of the auto segmentation of our robot. And as you can see already, it did a pretty well job for the first go. So it generated in total 32 parts, as you can see here. And it gave all of those different color codes. For example, we want to have that eye model here also separated, because right now, as you can see, it's kind of done, but not really. So we first need to find the color, which is most likely one of those colors. So first, let's check Tripo Part 7, for example, to see. And as you can see already, it's the one we are searching for. We can use the brush feature now as a first tool. And what we can do is now that we can paint kind of onto our mesh the color that we would like to have to expand our selection. So we can choose here then the color, for example, as well. If we are not sure which color it is, we can then start painting our model. And don't worry too much actually about the edges, because I will show you in a second how these edges will be fixed. So just make sure that it's not maybe going too much. Get the hang of it, kind of what it does, for example with brush tool, which gives us a lot of control actually about what part we would like to have separated and what not. Of course, we could also do on the opposite. For example, I would like to have combined this mesh over here and the body. When I go out here in the selection and first select this one, which is part 15, also the part 13 in this example, which is the body. So I can select both, and then there is a little merge button over here, which will then merge both of them into one mesh, and we can then have them combined. What we can also do is first using the paintbrush on this one, for example, just really quick to also paint further detail here so that it's also not separated. And what we can also do is we can make new selections. So if you would like to have a completely new selection for a part, let's say for example this part here on his head. So what we can do is that we go back to the brush feature and then go here to add part, and then we can start painting onto the mesh to kind of get a new selection on the head. So I will just quickly paint here on the top. Tripo is recognizing the selection that we would like to have. And as you can see, it's also really smooth, like the whole workflow. I think it's saving so much time than do it from scratch or trying to separate it in Blender, for example. Once you have done that, as you can see, we can simply go out here, and then also very important that you then save your mesh first to then recognize for Tripo that it's then showing up in the properties over here, and that we then have here our mesh hidden kind of and then complete it again. then what we can do then is, once we're happy, kind of, let's say, let's merge this again because this got lost now with the last change that we made. So I will just merge those parts again like this. We'll also merge them again, so we don't need to paint anything. You can always select multiple parts by hitting Control and then selecting multiple ones, and then simply say here merge, and then it will assign a new color for it. Okay, great. And once it's then saved, as you can see, we have now Tripo Part 22, and that's the whole mesh. But as you can notice, there are still some holes in the mesh, and this is of course obviously not nice. And we can simply, to do that, I most of the time simply select all the parts here. So I will go down the whole list, basically select everything with Control, and then I will make sure that I hit here part completion, and you can see already a preview so what it's doing. So basically it will then complete all parts that we have and make a better mesh out of it, and it will fix all issues that we have. And then we can hit here part completion and go ahead with it to complete all parts. To show you this really quick on just a few ones, so what it's doing, that we simply select all parts that we have here, and then we hit part completion now. And as you can see, now the list is a bit shorter, and we can do that. We can simply hit here part selection, part completion, and now it will complete the parts for us and fix any edging issues that we have, and further refine the mesh for us, which is great. All right, great. And this is now after the part completion. And as you can see here, for example, it gave us a pretty decent result with, like, you know, cleaning up the shapes and the roundness, for example. Over here on the top, it didn't work perfectly, to be honest, but we can further refine that, for example, by using the brush again, and by using then extending the eye, for example, again. So, and then you would go ahead and just do that with basically all the parts, just refining, further refining, until it looks then something like that, where I did it here in this example already. So I will do that now quickly for all the parts, and then I will see you back in a second. Okay, great. And this is then the result of our part segmentation. So as you can see, I painted, for example, over here also an additional foot that I had because it was before merged. I just assigned it a new color with the brush tool, and then I did the part completion and saved the changes. And as you can see, we have now really clean meshes, which is great. You can also, of course, always turn them off and on and hide them if you want, and shift them around in 3D space to test them out if you want. We also have a history over here. So if you want to go back to some part, you can also do that. Then go to our next step, which is the retopology phase. And as you can see, all our meshes are still separated, even though the colors are not shown for this one. But what we could do, for example, is now to make a really nice retopology of our mesh, which was not possible before because we needed to do it on the combined mesh, and now we can do it for every single part that we would like to have. And then we can say here, once we have one part selected, which we can also see over here in our selection, so it's Tripo Part 22, you can simply hit here retopology, and then it will retopologize the single mesh, which is really powerful actually, because now, as I said already, we can give different topologies to different meshes, and it will then do a much better job on the auto retopology than ever before. And then once it's done, we could also view it over here. So as you can see, we get a really nice, in this case, a really nice wireframe over here with the topology that we have. So this is way better than what we had before. We can then do this with each part basically to just retopologize it to whatever we want. So I will select all of them basically, and then we can go here to topology quad, and then we go here to retopology, and then it will retopology basically every part that we need. What you could also do, for example, is just retopologizing one special part that should be in the smart low poly phase if it needs less complex retopology, let's say it like this, and not that much detail. So what we could do, for example, is then going to the arm, for example, over here, or maybe this part here could be a bit simpler, and then we can go here, smart low poly, we have one part selected, and then it will retopologize this one mesh for us. As you can see, it gives now this more rough structure, but this is also totally fine for when you want to reduce, for example, the polys on your mesh, that it's not that high poly anymore. Okay, great. And next step is now finally the texturing phase. So we can go straight into texturing. We have our model loaded, which is cool. And now it's very important as well that you choose and select every mesh part that we have over here. I always did the mistake that I just generated the model over here and nothing happened, and I was wondering why the hell is this happening, and the reason for it is that we first need to select also each part here individually. So we will need to select all Tripo parts that we have from our segmented mesh, and then it will work flawlessly. You can either choose to have it image aligned, so the image that you can upload over here. You can also do texture generation through text, so you can also describe it here and it will then generate a completely new texture for our mesh, but we want to keep this one here since we have the reference image already. Could also say here a style reference, for example, but we can also choose to not use that. We can also go here to HD texture. For style reference, I might choose then our model itself, the image that we have, so that it just choose the style. Then we have here HD texture, and we could also say structure align. And once you have done that, you can then go here to generate texture, and it will apply then the texture onto our separated mesh. And then once the process is done, as you can see, it did a pretty good job, I have to say, on the mesh itself, which is great. And as you can see, we can use this then and shift things around basically however we want to have it. One additional method that is very powerful in the texturing mode is that we can actually, once we separated our model into those segmented parts, that we can choose specific parts that we just want to retexture while keeping the original texture alive for the other parts. If I want to change, for example, the body part here on the main part, what I can do is simply select here. Then you can see over here that it says one part selected, and what we can do then is, for example, go either in the image tab or the text tab and then describe how we want to change the texture on the model part. And I prepared here something that I'm saying, for example, a futuristic robot body. It has rust on it and breakup, so kind of like this one. Maybe let's remove the rust part for this one just to see what we're getting. And additional to that, we can also click on this little light bulb that we have over here, and we can also choose details like, for example, rust or scratches. We can also say, for example, stains and cracks, which would fit our robot model also kind of nicely, I would say. And what we can do then is simply going on here, make sure that you have here the texture alignment set to image aligned or structure aligned. You can try both if you want. And then what we can do is here hit generate texture, and then it will generate a new texture for us just for this one specific part. And then as you can see, it only generated a texture for the specific part, which is great. Here it's quite rusty, so you can, for example, also remove the rust if you want and then regenerate it. But I think this is showing really well that we can, for example, just choose specific parts. If we want to revert that, for example, to change it, we can also always go to our history, then go here to the step that we had before, which is this one, and then you simply click here on the three little dots and say restore this version. Besides only retexturing single parts, we can of course also retexture the whole mesh. So what I think is really great and a cool feature to play around with it is that we can also take an input image like this one, which I also prompted in Midjourney, and then retexture with this kind of texture the whole mesh of the robot. And to do that is that we first need to select all parts again from our base mesh. Then we go in here to the image mode and delete it over here. Make sure that you're here in the texture, and then you can upload the new image, for example this one. I will say here that I want to have it on structure aligned, so that it aligns better with our robot mesh. And what we can do then is also hit here generate texture, and then it will generate, based on this image, our whole new texture for our robot. And then as you can see, our robot is completely retextured, and I think this is pretty cool and has a completely new texturing and also looks really nice from the structure and everything. So that is definitely something to play around with. So to show you before and after, we had this texture here, and now we have the completely new mesh. Of course, you can also use the image technique with just selecting one single mesh and then just regenerating it for this one with a single image. And look how cool this robot looks already. One more thing you can do to fix your texture if you have noticed some texture flaws, what we can also do is using the magic brush tool that we have over here. As you can see, it's showing us then an albedo texture. We also have here already then the prompt that it's by default taking, and then we can say here creativity strength. So this one is more aligning to the original character when we keep it on a low value, and this is more like going for like different style if you want that. Once it's there, as you can see, we had here a higher value, so it's a bit different. What we can do is go here to brush. As you can see, our camera is locked, and then we can simply paint onto the mesh which is not working right now. As you can see, it's not working right now. Maybe let's select parts again to make sure that it will apply it. Then we go again to generate preview. Make sure to choose the brush, of course, and not the eraser, and that you're then not wondering like me why it's not working. As you can see, camera is not locked, so we can't use the view right now. But what we could do actually is that we then go here to the icon, and then we can go to the side view, for example, go again to generate preview. And if we would like to save that, then we could go here to save texture and save the file. But since I'm already happy with the main generation, I will just go back quickly and then have my original texture back. And then there's one more thing. We can also generate here PBR textures if we want that. And then it should generate PBR textures for all textured meshes kind of. One more thing I would like to show you is how you can rig and animate your character in a Tripo. Because once we have now our robot kind of textured and separated with the different meshes and everything, what we can do is simply going here to the rigging tab. And once we are in here, as you can see, we have this new kind of interface, and only thing, it's really simple. What you need to do is simply click here on auto rig. You can also choose here the version, but of course we would like to use the latest version 2.0, and then you can simply click on auto rig first. Okay, great. And once it's finished, we can first take a look at the skeleton it created. So you can choose then the skeleton rig. And as you can see, did quite a nice job to align all those bones, even to the hand structure. As you can see, we have all the fingers and stuff in line. And what we can do then as well is that we, for example, go into the walk mode, and then it will give it an animation. So once it's done, what we can do is then simply choosing here walk. And as you can see, it did a pretty nice job. We can also disable the skeleton mode over here. And we have all those separated meshes still in place. And our robot is basically walking, which is pretty cool. Of course, we can also choose different modes here. So for example, we can also say that he should be just idle, for example. And as you can see, this would be then the fantastic idle pose, but still quite nice, I think, to look at. Of course, we can also use the rigging and animation mode, not just on like human models or robot models, which have kind of a human anatomy. So what we can do, for example, I prompted also this bee here, what I then generated as a 3D model, and I think this is also looking really great. And what you could do then as well is that you also go here to the auto rig. Once it's generated, as you can see, we can also go here to the skeleton mode, for example, and it recognizes it as a hexapod. And as you can see, we then have all those bones for the different legs here, which is cool, and we can have this completely new structure for the animal kind of, and once you're happy then with the rig, for example, and the animation, what you can always do, of course, is go here to export, and then you can choose here your file name, choose then here, for example, also export skeleton, to have then the rig included, and then you can simply hit here export, and it will automatically download for you to your PC. And then we can finally take our mesh once we have processed it for all the steps if you want. Of course, you can always use the fast method, which I showed in the beginning over here with the one-click method, but this is just a way to do it a bit more refined if you want to take it step by step. You can also segment your one-click mesh if you want, but I experienced that it's a much cleaner experience when I do it step by step. Anyways, choose your preferred method and also let me know down below which method you prefer. So anyways, once you have done that, what we can do is now finally export our mesh. So we will go to the overview. It's also giving us here a metallic thickness value. We want to change that, for example, from the PBR material that we created, which is cool. And what we can do then as a last step is go here to export, then we can also rename it, then we can go here to format, I will export it here in FBX, and then we can also say that we would like to export the skeleton. I would not do that for now because I don't need it. And here pack UV, I can say that it should combine all UV lens into one if we want that. Otherwise, we can also leave that off to generate it on multiple parts. Then we can go here to export, and then it will start then exporting a mesh to our PC. You will see the export status over here. You can also always check your progress and if something was successful or not over here if you want to do that. And then we can export it, and then once it's exported, you can also see it here under my robot. Then we can go to Blender, then File, import, and then we're choosing here the FBX format. Then we will go to our download folder and then choose here the My Robot file, import FBX. Okay, great. And once it's imported, as you can see, we have here our mesh. All textures should be also applied if we go here to Z and press then to material preview. And then as you can see, we also have all textures, which is great. And we have all meshes kind of separated, which is cool. We could also, as a last final thing, kind of is go here to objects at origin and then origin to geometry. And as you can see, we have then the origin in the geometry part, and we can easier move that if you want. And this is just great if we want then, for example, also take it further to Substance Painter, for example, or stable projectors or whatever you name it. Just to show you quickly a few other examples I did. So for example, here we also have a kind of game weapon that I prompted from a 2D image. This is with another applied texture, but as you can see also for the segmentation part, which is not refined here, but as you can see, it's recognizing all those different parts, which is awesome because we can get so much detail from them in the end if we want that. Same here actually. I think here it's really astonishing from texture quality wise, which was great because here I just took the whole character, then I choose here the final image, and then I just regenerated here the texture part. And what we could do now also on this one is go here to segmentation, then splitting him off, that we have all those parts separated. And I think this is also a really cool way to do that actually, or to repaint details, for example over here with the magic brush. As you can see, there are so many options what we can choose. We could also go here to generation, go to one click, or let's say to one click and then delete this one, for example. Go here to text to 3D, and then for example we can also use the text to 3D as one last example. For example, a police car 3D model, cartoony and high detail, and then we can confirm that as well, and then it will generate a 3D model for us from this text prompt that you can also do. And then it will give us an image over here, and as you can see, this is also pretty cool. So you don't even need to go to Midjourney if you want to do that. And then you can also hit here one click, and then it will also generate the model for us. Alright, I really hope you have liked the video. If you have liked it, please let me know down below, and give this video a thumbs up and a subscription if you want to support me. Of course, also check out Tripo AI. As I mentioned, there's also a discount code down below, so just make sure to check that out, where you will get a huge discount for Pro membership, which I think is great. And otherwise, see you on the next one.